Jakarta is not just Indonesia's capital. It is the country's political command center, its largest city, its main economic engine, and the core of one of the biggest urban regions on Earth. Officially called the Special Capital Region of Jakarta, it has an administrative status similar to a province, even though the city itself covers only about 662 square kilometers. That relatively small area sits on the northwestern coast of Java, facing the Java Sea and bordered by West Java and Banten. But the Jakarta people experience every day is much larger than the formal city limits. The wider metropolitan region, known locally as Jabodetabek, stretches across surrounding cities and regencies, binding them into a vast urban system of commuting, housing, industry, and services. With more than 40 million people in Greater Jakarta, this is not simply a city. It is a national magnet, a regional powerhouse, and a daily test of how a megacity functions under extreme pressure. Jakarta's location explains much of its importance. It sits on Java, Indonesia's most populous island, along a northern coastline that has connected inland kingdoms, maritime traders, colonial powers, and modern businesses for centuries. The Java Sea to the north links Jakarta to shipping routes across the Indonesian archipelago and Southeast Asia. Inland, the city is tied to dense networks of roads, railways, industries, universities, and towns that make Western Java one of the most economically active parts of the country. This geography made Jakarta valuable long before it became a modern capital. A good port near productive hinterlands could collect goods, attract merchants, and project power. Over time, that coastal advantage helped turn a regional harbor into an imperial headquarters, and then into the capital of an independent republic. Jakarta's story begins with the sea, but it grows through the movement of people, goods, and authority across land and water. Before the name Jakarta existed, the area was associated with Sunda Kelapa, an important port of the Sunda Kingdom. It had been inhabited since at least the early centuries of the Common Era, and by the medieval period it was connected to trade in the region. Ports like Sunda Kelapa were not isolated settlements. They were meeting points where local rulers, traders, sailors, and foreign influences interacted. Goods passed through, but so did languages, religions, technologies, and political ambitions. In 1527, forces linked to the Demak Sultanate captured the settlement and renamed it Jayakarta, a name often understood as meaning something like Victoria's City. That moment reflected a broader transformation in Java and the archipelago, as Islamic sultanates, regional trade, and shifting political alliances reshaped older networks of power. The city's identity was already layered, local, maritime, commercial, and contested. The next major turning point came in 1619, when the Dutch East India Company, known as the VOC, seized the city and rebuilt it as Batavia. This was not just a name change. Batavia became the headquarters of Dutch commercial and political power in the Indonesian archipelago. For the VOC, the city was a strategic base from which it could manage trade, enforce monopolies, and expand influence across islands rich in spices and other valuable commodities. Under Dutch rule, Batavia developed into a colonial city with European administrative spaces, commercial districts, canals, warehouses, and segregated communities. It was both a trading hub and a symbol of empire. For more than 3 centuries, Batavia stood at the center of colonial authority, shaping patterns of land ownership, urban planning, labor migration, and cultural mixing that would leave deep marks on the future Jakarta. The 20th century transformed Batavia into Jakarta. During the Second World War, Japanese forces occupied the Dutch East Indies, weakening Dutch colonial control and accelerating nationalist movements. In 1945, Indonesia declared independence, and the city took the name Jakarta as the capital of the new republic. This was a powerful symbolic shift. A colonial headquarters became the seat of a sovereign nation. Government ministries, national institutions, political parties, media organizations, and diplomatic missions concentrated there. Jakarta was now where decisions about the entire archipelago were made, from economic planning to foreign policy. The city's role as capital also gave it a special place in the national imagination. It was a destination for opportunity, education, bureaucracy, protest, and ambition. For millions across Indonesia, Jakarta represented the center of modern national life, even if reaching that center often meant confronting inequality and hardship. Jakarta's rise after independence was closely tied to rapid urbanization. Since the mid-20th century, people have migrated to the capital region from across Indonesia, drawn by jobs, universities, government offices, factories, informal work, and the hope of upward mobility. This migration expanded Jakarta far beyond its original urban core. Suburbs, satellite cities, industrial zones, toll roads, shopping centers, and dense residential neighborhoods spread through the surrounding region. The result is Jabodetabek, a name formed from Jakarta, Bogor, Depok, Tangerang, and Bekasi. These places are administratively separate, but economically and socially intertwined. Millions commute across boundaries every day. A person may sleep in Bekasi, work in central Jakarta, shop in Tangerang, and have family in Depok. The metropolitan area functions as one enormous organism, but one governed by multiple jurisdictions, making planning, transport, flood control, and housing policy extremely complex. Economically, Jakarta is Indonesia's main financial and commercial center. It hosts corporate headquarters, banks, media companies, business services, trade networks, and many of the institutions that connect Indonesia to the global economy. The Globalization and World Cities Research Network classifies Jakarta as an Alpha World City, placing it among cities with significant international influence. Its importance is not only domestic. Jakarta is also the home of the Secretariat of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, giving it a major diplomatic role in the region. In practical terms, Jakarta concentrates decision-making. Companies come to be close to regulators, investors, clients, and talent. Diplomats come to engage with Indonesia and Southeast Asia. Workers come because economic opportunity is deeper and more diverse than in many other parts of the country. This concentration generates wealth, but it also intensifies competition for land, housing, infrastructure, and public services. One of Jakarta's most distinctive features is that it has no single ethnic majority. Its population includes large communities of Javanese, Betawi, Sundanese, Chinese Indonesians, and migrants from many other islands and regions. Indonesian is the official language and the main language of public life, helping people from different backgrounds communicate in schools, offices, media, and government. But everyday Jakarta is multilingual and culturally layered. The Betawi people, often associated with the historic local identity of Jakarta, reflect centuries of mixing among local communities and Chinese, Indian, Arab, Malay, and European influences. Betawi culture can be seen in food, music, theater, wedding traditions, and neighborhood life. Jakarta's diversity is not just a demographic fact. It is the result of centuries of trade, colonialism, migration, and national integration. The city is a miniature version of Indonesia's complexity, compressed into one crowded urban landscape. The same forces that make Jakarta dynamic also create persistent urban problems. Traffic congestion is one of the most visible. With millions of people moving across a metropolitan region each day, roads often struggle to handle private cars, motorcycles, buses, freight vehicles, and informal transport. Long commutes shape daily life, reducing family time, productivity, and quality of life. Public transport improvements have expanded, including rail and bus systems, but the scale of demand is enormous. Air pollution is another major concern, linked to transport, industry, construction, and regional conditions. In a dense urban environment, pollution affects public health and makes the costs of growth visible in the air people breathe. Jakarta shows a central dilemma of megacities. Economic concentration creates opportunity, but without enough coordinated infrastructure and environmental management, everyday movement and health become major challenges. Water is Jakarta's deepest long-term challenge. The city faces flooding from several directions. Heavy tropical rainfall can overwhelm drainage systems. Rivers flowing from inland areas can bring large volumes of water into the low-lying city. Coastal areas are exposed to the Java Sea. At the same time, land subsidence has made parts of Jakarta sink, worsening flood risks. Subsidence is linked in part to groundwater extraction, as households, businesses, and industries have historically relied on underground water in areas where piped supply has not been sufficient. When the ground compacts and sinks, sea walls, drainage canals, roads, and buildings become harder to protect. Flooding in Jakarta is therefore not just a weather problem. It is a combined infrastructure, environmental, social, and governance problem. It reveals how urban growth, water management, poverty, and climate vulnerability are connected. These pressures helped motivate one of Indonesia's most consequential national decisions, moving the future capital to Nusantara in East Kalimantan. The relocation plan does not mean Jakarta will suddenly become unimportant. Its economy, population, institutions, universities, media networks, ports, and business districts will remain central to Indonesia for years to come. But the move reflects a recognition that Jakarta carries too many burdens at once. It is the seat of government, the main financial hub, the largest urban concentration, and a vulnerable coastal city facing congestion, flooding, pollution, and subsidence. Relocating the capital is partly about reducing pressure on Jakarta and partly about promoting development beyond Java, which has long dominated Indonesia's population and economy. Even so, moving political administration is easier than moving an economic ecosystem. Jakarta's influence is deeply rooted. Jakarta's story is the story of a city that has repeatedly changed names, rulers, populations, and functions, while remaining a center of power. From Sunda Kelapa to Jayakarta, from Batavia to modern Jakarta, it has been shaped by trade, empire, independence, migration, and globalization. Today it is both impressive and strained, a world city with immense economic energy, a cultural crossroads without a single ethnic majority, and a metropolitan giant whose scale challenges planners and residents alike. Its future will depend on how Indonesia manages growth, infrastructure, water, housing, transport, and environmental risk. Whether or not the national capital formally shifts to Nusantara, Jakarta will continue to matter. It is where much of Indonesia's modern history has been concentrated, and where the country's urban future is already being tested in real time. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.